So we have a new discovery about how ISIS works. Okay, now ISIS is the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Now, it's first started out as a branch of Al Qaeda. It no longer is. Al Qaeda has now rejected them for being too extreme. That allowed us to do al-Zawahiri and al-Baghdadi's excellent adventure, because this is about their Excel spreadsheets. Really, Zawahiri isn't much involved anymore. Anyways, we're having fun. All right, now, of course, what ISIS does is not fun, but it's amazing the meticulous notes that they apparently took that we were able to confiscate. That tells us how they operate. Now, they had different brackets in their Excel spreadsheets. One was for the assassination platoon. I bet you've never written that in an Excel spreadsheet. And then they had spoils, for as in the spoils of war. The looting that they would do after they captured a territory, they would log that in their spreadsheet. Okay, oh, nice job, Ahmed. Good spoils of war in your little bracket there. And then my favorite, Mustafa Explosives Company. I know this is really serious stuff, but it sounds like something out of, Acme Company with the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. Oh, there's Mustafa Explosives Company again. So it's fascinating that we were able to capture all of this. In fact, it's now under the Harmony database. And they explain at the Lexington Herald Leader, the Harmony database is a repository of more than 1 million documents gathered from Iraq, Afghanistan, and other war zones. Some 200 Iraq-related documents, personal letters, expense reports, membership rosters were declassified in the past year through West Point's Combating Terrorism Center for the use of RAND Corps. 2 notes on that. One, the idea of terrorists having expense reports, no matter how serious the story is hilarious. Well, I got the gas for the car, but then the car blew up. I guess I write that one down too, right? I mean, it's crazy. But second important point here is, wait, why are they releasing this information? We got people like Chelsea Manning sitting in jail for decades because, oh my God, you're releasing. Why are you releasing to the public how ISIS operates and we know they operate? Wouldn't that be the most classified information? And this government is crazy. They don't really mind if people know what we know, and oh my God, this is the group we're fighting against. We just sent 300 special forces. Well, if they figure out that we know what they're doing, wouldn't that be the most classified? No, no, no. The things that are the most classified are the things that embarrass the government. This doesn't embarrass the government at all. If anything, maybe it embarrasses ISIS. So they're like, operational strategy, please just release it. Who cares? So you know what our policies are actually about. Now back to their ways of operating, which are very interesting. So they apparently did not get much outside donations. It only counted about for 5% of their funding. They would wind up raising the money from the local population instead. If it seems like they've got the support of the local population, well, not exactly. In some places, they certainly do. But in other places, they mainly got it through extortion, kidnapping, and other forms of crime. And they would also do basically a 20% tax on their other local syndicates. So they say, okay, now we're the umbrella group, but if you're in the Diyala province and you're doing a nice extortion racket, we're going to go ahead and take 20% of that. It's funny how that works. And that gave them a lot of money to continue. And then they would take cash from the richer provinces like the Mosul area, which is Mosul is the second largest city in Iraq. Even before they captured it, they had good access to money from there. And then they would redistribute it to Diyala, Salahuddin, and even Baghdad in places that were needed. And then they would check on return on investment. Isn't this amazing? Like, because we have this image in America, oh, a bunch of terrorists living in a cave, they don't know anything, we can wipe them out easy if we wanted to. No, these guys, whether we like it or we don't, and we certainly don't like it, are fairly sophisticated, and they're keeping tabs on this, and they're figuring out what works and doesn't work, and they're tracking it. And so they noticed that, hey, when we put in the money towards the provinces that needed the extra funds, we got more violence, which they view as a good thing. So they're like, good return on investment. You pour money in, you get violence out. Nice job, guys. So apparently ISIS's accountants were thrilled with how that was going. And apparently as much as 56% of their payments went to the families of people who were killed fighting, right? Whether they were suicide bombers or otherwise. See, they're martyrs, and you keep their families happy and you get more recruits. We'll show you why they needed to keep recruits happy in a second, because they didn't pay very well. And they noticed that if you went to go lobby the tribal committees, and this is information from back when we were inside Iraq as well, okay? So this information goes up to 2010. So al Baghdadi, who's now running the group, takes over right around then. So this is a lot of this information is before al Baghdadi took over. I'll tell you at the end what his change in the group was. But all this seems to be their infrastructure even to this day. So they would go after the U.S. talked to tribal leaders in certain Sunni areas, and they would step in and be like, oh yeah, what did the U.S. say? Okay, we'll bribe you even better. First of all, here's a gift. Here, sometimes they would give a gift of a Quran. Really? They didn't have a Quran? Okay, anyway, it's not me to figure out how they bribed the tribal elders, but they would. So it's like we think we're so clever, we're going like, we're gonna go talk to the tribal elders. You think we're the only ones going to talk to them? They're carefully tracking in their Excel spreadsheet all the tribal elders we talk to, and they go in and re-bribe them to get them back on their side. That's part of the reason why they have a lot of support in the Sunni community today. Because at some point, of course, we were gonna leave and stop bribing those guys, and they knew guys like ISIS would be around a long, long time and keep those gifts coming. And so a lot of them have now switched over, are on ISIS's side, and helped them capture large parts of Iraq. And finally, two other interesting facts here. One is that they actually pay very little. They only pay $41 a month to their fighters. For example, if you're a regular construction worker in Iraq and you were a bricklayer, literally you get about $150 a month. So what that indicates is, obviously these fighters aren't in it for the money, they're in it for martyrdom and glory, and so the money is peripheral. The money matters if you die. That's when they give it to your family and you want your family to be covered. But while you're alive, they don't pay you much at all. It's obviously zeal of the converted. And by the way, how likely are you to die? They're 47 times more likely to die than the general population of men ages 18 to 48 in that area of Iraq. It's not surprising. And then when we come to the last fact, this is when al Baghdadi takes over. And at that point, the Excel spreadsheets are humming, the extortion racket is going well, etc. And they've got this money. They don't even need the big outside donors. And al Baghdadi comes in and says, what are we doing this for? We're not doing it for money. We're going to try to actually take an Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Up and at them, we've got enough money, let's go get them. So that's when they begin the attacks. Now that's when our documents end, so we don't know the rest of the story for now in terms of their internal dealings, right? But we do know what happened externally. They begin a long series of attacks, some against long odds, and when they get victories, they get more money, more weapons, and more outside support. So you take all these things we found out about on that spreadsheet and you multiply them by 10. For example, when they took over the city of Mosul, which of course happened recently, well, they got over a $400 million bounty that they would put under the category of spoils in just one bank alone. Recently, they took over a border town, went to the bank, got another $5 million. So in some sense, they're both, the mob and terrorists and an insurgent group at the same time. So we certainly don't like what they're doing, but they are sophisticated, and now we know a lot more about their operation.